So it turns out blockchain is creating a city. They actually announced this back in 2018 that they want to create a city, but now there's a Nevada bill that is being proposed that would allow tech companies to create governments for these cities that they're building. So imagine a completely privatized municipality. So if we just didn't think you could privatize anything and everything, now you can absolutely privatize everything. This is here's the article from usnews.com. It says Nevada bill will allow tech companies to create governments. Planned legislation to establish new business areas in Nevada would allow technology companies to effectively form separate local governments. So it's saying here that Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak, Democratic governor, of course, right? Because, Democrats are in the pocket of big corporations and big tech. As cool as this city sounds like it might be, and it might be for you, I don't know. But I think there's some real questions that we should be asking around these cities, that's for sure. But of course, it was Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak announced a plan to launch so-called innovation zones in Nevada to jumpstart the state's economy by attracting technology firms. Nevada, to me, do you remember that movie Total Recall with Arnold Schwarzenegger? That Nevada just seems like that to me. It's just like the wild, wild, west. Like, do whatever you want in Nevada, including create your own city, Jeff Bezos. If you want to create your own city and run it and be king of your city, go ahead. Says the zones would permit companies with large areas of land to form governments carrying the same authority as counties, including the ability to impose taxes, form school districts and courts, and provide government services. So the rules are they have to have 50,000 acres of land, and then they have to invest $250 million into this municipality that they're going to build from the ground up. So this is actually something that's been done in Israel. I've seen one when I was over there, when I was kind of checking out the occupation of the Palestinians in the West Bank. And we were driving around the West Bank, and there were these kind of in the far off distance, these cities that just seemed to crop up out of nowhere that were these magnificent looking, cyber almost looking cities. And apparently, some big billionaire went in there and decided to build a city from the ground up, sort of a settlement, like a really high-tech settlement, apparently from the ground up. And so now that had been going on for maybe 10 or 10 years over in Israel. So now I guess, and I know they've also done these sorts of cities from the ground up in the Emirates, I believe, or the United Arab Emirates, I believe, has some of these sort of cropped up out of nowhere, just some rich company or billionaire just buying up a bunch of land and just building stuff from the ground up, like just out of nothing. So I guess that's coming to America. So they have to have $50,000 50,000 acres, $250 million to start. And then from there, they would then be allowed to build up their city the way they want, completely privatized. So now, the first one to do this, blockchain, actually asked to do this a long time ago. Let me show you what their city is kind of. This is their, I don't know what this website is, but this is sort of the blockchain city that they're kind of thinking about. So let me see let's kind of explore this website together and see I don't know if it does. What does it do? Does it tell us any more about this? It's blank because they haven't built the city yet. Oh, here it is. So this is their concept, I suppose. So it's supposed to be, really, it's supposed to be like a very high tech, futuristic. It's going to be green. It's going to have all kinds of stuff going on. I guess the video is not playing on, you guys can't see the video that's sort of playing. Maybe it froze. It looks like it froze. What you guys are seeing. It's not moving. Sorry about that. I don't know. I don't know why it's not showing you everything I'm looking at. But anyway, so there's this city. You guys can check out this, go and Google up blockchain city and check it out, what it looks like. But it does look pretty cool. It looks pretty futuristic. I mean, hey, listen, I get it. This sounds really, really interesting, right? To have a futuristic city that's run on all kinds of futuristic tech, and it would have the best of everything, and it sounds really, really, really cool. But it leads us into these questions about, if they're going to be completely privatized, And these cities are going to be able to be run and taxed by corporations. This is the ultimate in privatization. We already fight privatization of quite a few industries. You know, a lot of people want to privatize schools completely, which means that a lot of children would be left behind. They wouldn't get quality education because only the kids with money would get the best education because it's completely privatized. So it's whatever you can buy is what you get. Same thing with our medical system. We see how well that's working. It leaves millions upon millions of people uninsured and dying, while some people get the best care and others who are not, who don't have money don't. We see what happens when things are privatized. So I don't know if it's a really good idea to fully privatize a town. And I'll tell you what really scares me the most about it, because it's like, okay, fine. It's your choice. You want to go live in this cyber city, and maybe I would for a year. I'd think, oh, let's go try it out. It kind of seems unique and interesting and cool and really futuristic and kind of a fun experiment. Why not? But the bigger question I think that this leads to is where does this lead, right? Where does this political structure, if we find that this city, okay, let's say it works well. I mean, that's kind of the problem. The problem is if it actually goes really well and they build up the city and it's amazing and they're running the city and they're taxing the people and they've got their schools and they have their hospitals and they have their fire stations and their police forces and they've got their courts. They have all of these things. And it's going really well. And then people say, well, why don't we privatize all of these other cities as well? So let's just start privatizing city after city after city. That would be, I think, the real problem with going in this direction, is that suddenly you're going to get a Bloomberg who says, well, I want to buy New York. You know, I'm going to take some billions of dollars. I'm going to buy New York City and I'm going to run New York City because I don't like the government anymore. They're not doing a very good job. So I'm going to go ahead and buy it and I'm going to run it. Same thing. Jeff Bezos says, well, I'm going to buy Seattle. So I'm going to run Seattle. I'm going to buy it. Right. So we've got Mark Zuckerberg saying, I'll buy San Francisco. So suddenly we're living in a world where these corporations are able to buy cities because people see that this city, blockchain city in Nevada, or some other cities that are cropping up around the country are being run well. And they're done by corporations. And of course, only the rich would be able to afford to live there. And they would shove out all the poor because they don't have to care about the people because they're private cities and they could do what they want, just like private companies. So that is where, even as cool as this sounds to me, and listen, I'm the type that I put my name in for a Cybertruck. You know, I think that sounds really cool. I like that kind of cutting edge, futuristic stuff. I think all that stuff is really cool. But and as much as I would think that this is really kind of neat and it would be probably pretty fantastic. I mean, just the technology that the city is run on. I think it would probably be, if it actually is built well, it would be pretty fantastic. But it does lead us down this road of questions that we have to ask, which is, where does that lead? And will this just be a new layer in America's corporatocracy? We're already run by corporations in so many ways. This would be the ultimate. You know, when we sit here and we think that the corporations are actually running our government behind the scenes, right? We say, well, they bought off all of our politicians, so they're essentially running our government. They're essentially in charge. This would actually put them in charge, in our faces. It wouldn't have to be behind the scenes anymore. It wouldn't be behind the curtain. It would be in our faces. Corporations are in charge. So do we want that? Is that something we think is a good idea? If they build these municipalities, what's the alternative, I guess, for them? If they're investing $250 million in sort of creating these little areas, how would do they need to incorporate? Could they incorporate? Do they need to be near another town and just sort of be a neighborhood inside of a city? I know that's where I'm from, Boise, Idaho. We've got this little town that's technically a part of Boise. So it's inside of Boise's jurisdiction. And it's run by Boise's politics and Boise's police and fire and all of that. But it's a town that's about 8 miles outside of the city. And they built it back when I was in high school. So it was like 20-something years ago, 25 years ago. They started on this it's Pleasantville, and it's creepy. It looks, it feels, it smells like Pleasantville. It's very odd because it's perfect. It's so perfect. It's creepy. And they built it, and a lot of people flooded out there. They wanted to live out there. They had their own little school, their own little fire station. It all looked perfect. It looked like they were just in Desperate Housewives, right? Or Pleasant. I mean, it was just really, you just expected at night zombies were coming out. And actually, the place was, there's a lot of rumors about that little town out there and kind of scary. But nonetheless, even though it was like this little city inside of a city, it was still run by the actual city. It wasn't allowed to become its own municipality where the people were going to, be bought by the developer. The developer did not run that town. So, I think that there maybe would be a different way to go about this rather than saying, let's go ahead and turn over a town completely to a corporation and allow them to tax the people, run the courts, run the fire stations, run the schools, run everything. It's pretty scary, guys, because where does it lead? And I think that should be a question that we all ask. As cool as this sounds, and I'm sure many of us will want to go visit it as a tourist attraction. Maybe even some of you would want to live in it. But I think it does definitely lead us to some real questions about where does this lead when America's already so bought off by the corporations.